As a true leader, the Scrum Master serves ... I don't know why, but we're getting a lot of traffic with people searching this term. And it's a phrase that we find directly out of the Scrum Guide. So we all know this. We teach the classes. We know the Scrum Guide quite well. But I think it's great to be able to unpack this concept of true leadership in terms of service. So I've got a couple of categories. First off is the Scrum team. And I would like to hear what you got to say about that, Rob. You've got quite a bit of experience with Scrum teams.
Sure. Well, one big area where they serve their Scrum team is by encouraging and empowering the team to be self-managing and focusing on cross-functionality. So a little bit on self-management. Teams that can manage themselves find issues sooner. They get stuff done faster. They're right there doing the work. They know what they're up to. So really, it's within the Scrum team's interest to be self-managing, as it will be a lot less expensive for the organization and a lot less frustrating for everybody. But cross-functionality is another one. So cross-functionality, it's this idea that we have all the skills necessary on the team, but technically cross-functionality only means you have more than one function on a team. So you could be cross-functional and not have everybody you need. But the more you have everyone you need, the more likely you are to finish things every sprint. So Scrum Masters are going to be focused on that to keep a team successful. Another way they help is by empowering the team to basically own their own meetings, own their own calendar. So one thing I do when I teach Scrum classes is, at the end of it, I say, all right, who's going to own the daily Scrum appointment in Outlook? And it doesn't have to be the Scrum Master. And everyone kind of looks like, what, me? And then a developer picks it up. And who's going to own the sprint review? That can be any of you. Product owner typically takes it. And so you're right away trying to start off the Scrum Master not being your project manager by having the team own their own meetings and facilitate themselves.
Gotcha. That's a big one, Rob. I feel like there's a lot of patterns right now where that's exactly what Scrum Masters think they have to do. In fact, it might be baked into their job description. You shall facilitate all Scrum events. So anyway, glad you pointed that one out. What else you got?
Yeah, and other ones like organizational level impediments are often killers to a team. So those could come from HR, those could come from finance, or just silly policies and procedures that organizations just keep doing and keep making more cumbersome and more laborious and expensive, and this slows down your team. And so helping to tackle these organizational impediments from a Scrum Master's perspective lets the team focus on getting their work done and helps them go faster over time.
This is cool. So I'm reading in the Scrum Guide that the Scrum Master's success is dependent upon the success of the team that they are Scrum Master for. So that's pretty incredible that we have many ways to be able to serve the team. I know specifically there's one accountability within the Scrum team that needs some guidance, maybe some coaching. Jason, product owners, how do Scrum Masters help them or serve them?
Yeah, the product owner is accountable for making sure that the product that the Scrum team is building is as valuable as possible. The Scrum Guide would say maximizing the value of the product. And a product owner might not just fall into this naturally, right? A product owner might come from a background, for example, that isn't using Scrum or isn't thinking about building the product in an agile manner with incrementalism and empiricism and iteratively. And so the product owner might need some help arranging their product backlog to really maximize that value, put the most valuable things first, and think about it in an incremental way. How do we get to a valuable increment quickly? How do we deliver value to the customers and the stakeholders quickly? And the Scrum Master can help by pointing out ways that the product backlog might be arranged in sort of a traditional way of thinking or more of a phased approach. The product owner might just be falling into old patterns. So a Scrum Master can really hold up a mirror and say, hey, you're arranging the product backlog here as if this was a waterfall project, but that's not what we're doing here. We're trying to get to a real valuable increment every single sprint and coach that product owner on how to better manage the product backlog. Another way Scrum Master can help the product owner is by helping them develop and clearly communicate a product goal. The product goal is really important to set a vision for where the Scrum team is taking this product. The product goal helps everybody align to the same future state of the product. It helps the product owner manage the product backlog and order the items on that backlog. There needs to be a healthy relationship between the product owner and the rest of the team. The product owner needs to be available enough to answer questions and to clarify what the stakeholders and the customer's needs are. And so if the product owner is absent, for example, the Scrum Master can help point out like, hey, the rest of the team needs you. We need you here to, fill in the gaps or to answer questions, what have you. And finally, the Scrum Master can help coach the product owner into staying in the lane of what rather than how. So again, if a product owner isn't coming from a deep background in agile frameworks and Scrum specifically, they might need some coaching on how to write product backlog items or how to manage that product backlog. That's not just a hamburger order of requirements. I want you to do this and this and this. There needs to be a checkbox here and a button there. And that's not really the product owner's purview. They should be thinking in terms of capabilities and value delivered. And they should be ordering that in a way, again, that maximizes value. So a Scrum Master can help the product owner make that mental shift and help them rearrange their product backlog so that it's not just a detailed list of do this, do this, do this, but more here's some problems to solve and let the developers figure out the best way to solve it.
That's really good. I like that. Problems to solve instead of giving the solutions to developers. Yeah, as originally a Scrum Master, I realized that I was incapable of serving the product owner in a very compatible way. And so I would encourage other Scrum Masters to look at maybe even the Professional Scrum product owner training that we offer. I know this is a shameless plug, but it is solid. And you certainly gain insights that you would never get by just purely looking at things through the lens of a Scrum Master only, and might be able to very much accelerate the growth of your product owner and help your organization see the impact of that particular accountability. That's pretty solid. So the segue to organization implementation of the Scrum framework. I always look at this as the organization says, this Scrum stuff sounds cool, and they hit the Scrum button. But it isn't magical. It's not a magical Scrum button. Rob, you've got a passion for agile transformation, bringing organizations to understand the impact of agility, of which Scrum is a fantastic framework. How does a Scrum Master serve the organization in this way?
Yeah, this is a topic near and dear to my heart for sure. How do organizations change, and how do they get from this horrible rigid structure to something more nimble and quick and lightweight? It might just start with a Scrum Master. It might start with some sort of a change agent built right into your organization where they're the ones that are working with the Scrum team, but once they get up and running, it's time to spread. So they might spread it by training others in the organization, maybe spinning up a new Scrum team, maybe training some stakeholders on the benefits of agility and Scrum. And once you've got a few more people trained, now it's about coaching them and helping them to do better with what they have, helping to use the framework better to get results and to accomplish sprint goals and get product goals accomplished. Other things they're going to help do, I mentioned it earlier, were addressing organizational impediments. So once these new teams start getting spun up and they start working, you'll find every reason in the organization why it's hard to do that and what makes you slow. And you have to make a choice. Remove that impediment that makes you slow, or keep working in a slow way just to not upset the apple cart. Well, we know where that goes. So other ways that they can help, really focusing on empiricism and focusing on the empirical process control model that Scrum is, and getting that idea to spread throughout the organization in order to manage work that's highly complex, meaning work that is coming with a lot more unknowns than knowns. If you don't know the right answer to everything, best to try something and then learn from the results. So spreading that idea organizationally is key. Probably the last thing I'll cover here is contracts. So contracts are historically a way where companies end up locking themselves into scope, budget, and time. And when something doesn't go quite right, all these things fall apart. Or when you have extra time, you just keep building things because, well, the customer's paid for your efforts. And they don't bake agility into the relationship with their customers. And so good Scrum Masters are going to work with the stakeholders to understand how they could look at contracts a little bit differently that benefits both the vendor and the consumer of the services, whatever side of the fence you happen to be on in that transaction.
This is fantastic. So holistically, Scrum teams, they serve, and as a result, help with their effectiveness at consistently delivering value every single sprint. I think there's so much packed into just that one statement, like what is value, consistency, and then with the organization, I like that, Rob, you capped it with the empirical evidence. when organizations still trend towards the idea that we have to get this to a known state, we're fighting the idea of complexity, and we're missing the opportunity for being able to leverage change instead of or really just accepting for what it is. And resisting change oftentimes results in some pretty bad results. So, guys, hey, thanks for helping kind of flesh this out. I think there is a lot that we've learned about the Scrum Master's role as being a true leader who serves the entire organization and the Scrum team. They are much more than Scrum nannies, as I refer to it, and I think this certainly develops that idea. Hey, thanks, guys. Hopefully, there'll be some comments, things that we can follow up with for our listeners or our watchers, and look forward to having you on the next video. See ya.